Welcome back to my channel, ladies and gentlemen. It has been a while since I've uploaded the deck profile, and this is a very different build to the types of decks I've built in the past. In fact, this may be a completely unique Archfiend build because I've looked around and I haven't really seen this anywhere else, and I'm calling it Masterking Control. And the whole idea of this particular build is to utilize the effects of Masterking Archfiend to send monsters from your deck to the graveyard, to search things out, to disrupt your opponent, to recycle resources. And before we get into the content, however, guys, if you enjoy this video, then please consider subscribing and giving it a like. It really helps with the exposure. You really are in the #1 place for all Archfiend related content. So without further ado, let's get straight into the deck profile. We have 23 monsters in the deck. So we play one Archfiend Emperor and one Archfiend Empress, so these go hand in hand with each other. If you're on more than one copy of Archfiend Emperor, I feel like it tends to be a bit of a brick. 2 at a push. Archfiend Empress, you could easily bump this up to 2, but she suffers a fairly similar fate to Archfiend Emperor in the sense she is a bit of a brick if you happen to hard draw her. The whole idea of Archfiend Empress is that she revives monsters from the graveyard, and it's not once per turn, so long as you continuously revive her, then you're laughing really. And you create this wall of Archfiends that makes it fairly difficult for your opponent to not only beat over, but also to figure out how many Archfiends you actually have at your disposal. It can look like you've got 1 or maybe even no monsters on your side of the field, but in actual fact, you've got about 5 or 6, right? So it makes it difficult for your opponent to realize what's game and what's not. Now we have DDD Eulogy Vice King Requiem. Now you're probably thinking this is mental, why would you play a card like this, considering it's not even a pendulum focused deck, and we'll get into it. But if you haven't seen the video already, I encourage you to check out the previous video on how to auto win with Archfiend, and this card plays a really prevalent role in seeing that happen. Moving on, we have one Imprisoned Queen Archfiend. So this monster is great for the grind game because she auto blows up and recycles your dark spirits. She has a 1000 maintenance cost, which means you can send Archfiend Empress off of Master King during your standby phase, or any other monster that has 1000 attack or defense, so she's quite good for utility. Just a nice pandemonium effect as well, but we don't really run the level 4 or lower fiends. And then we have a Labyrinth Archfiend. So this is a great card to run multiple copies of, but I only run it at 1 in this build because it's a nice beater. It has that nice protection effect when it's on the field, and it's just a nice extender. If on your opponent's turn you activate a trap, you can summon it straight from the hand, and it also allows you to search out battle traps as well if you do run them. One single copy of Archfiend Commander. This is an old but gold Archfiend monster. It's a nice extender, right? It can summon itself from the hand, and you just pop a Archfiend card on your side of the field. If you have Pandemonium, even better, because then you'll get a search. And it's one of those monsters that allows you to pop, say, a Cavalry or an Empress to recycle more of your Archfiend monsters. And that's basically what we use this monster for. And now we have Archfiend of Gilfer. This is an incredibly old card, and it's one of those monsters that's only really reserved for gimmicky FTKs and all that rubbish, right? But there is a use for it in this particular build. So if you're using Master King, the whole idea is that you're popping your own cards and then pushing with that resource grind. Archfiend of Gilfer has this effect where it recycles itself, right? So it always equips itself back onto a monster on the field if it's sent to the graveyard. It has a when effect, so that's a bit but the whole idea is that if you pop Archfiend of Gilfer, then you can continuously search off of Pandemonium, which we do run. So we play one Archfiend General to search out Pandemonium. It is by far my favorite field spell out of the 2. It's just fairly annoying at this stage because it's just a slow way to search in today's metagame. Archfiend Labyrinth has much better utility, at least until we get really decent Pandemonium targets. Then it'll be cracked wide open. But for now, we just play the 1 and we play Archfiend General to search it. Play 1 Archfiend Cavalry, so it's a great card because it can summon any Archfiend card from the graveyard, which is good, but it can't attack, unfortunately, and it also has the benefit of being level 4, so if you draw it, you can at least summon it and do something with it. Then we play 1 Lilith, so this allows us to search out traps like Archfiend's Glitch, and it also allows us to search out the exceedingly broken Give and Take, which we'll go over a bit more in the combo section later. Standard stuff, right? So we play 2 Dark Spirits, 1 Dark Spirit of Banishment, 1 Dark Spirit of Malice. This is your Dark Spirit resource loop, right? Revive Archfiend Empress from the graveyard, revive additional Archfiends, and then push forward beatdown style. 1 Fiendish Rhino Warrior. Again, you could play more copies of this card, but I feel like it does become a bit of a brick unless you have ways to readily get rid of it from your hand, because if you draw multiple, then you're really screwed. But it's a nice card to send from the deck to the graveyard, particularly under a Master King, because then you can always recycle it and then you have additional copies should you wish to use them. One Farfa, so this is a Master King target, send it to the graveyard, banish a card on the field, so it's a good disruptor. Tour Bus from the Underworld, so this is a fantastic card for disruption purposes and also for resource management. So if you haven't seen the video already, I already covered the Master King engine that allows you to recycle and search any Archfiend card from your deck, in which this card plays a heavy role in, so I do encourage you to check that one out. So I won't go into too much detail here, so I encourage you to check that out. 3 Tour Guide of the Underworld, so this is a starter. If someone uses Ash Blossom, then you're going to have a bad day, but the whole idea of course is to go into Master King using this card, right? It's a 1-card combo, summon something else, go into Master King, get an Archfiend Heiress search, and then job done. 2 Archfiend Heiress. 3 is a major brick because it needs to be discarded by card effect. It can't just discard itself or anything like that. And through Master King, you're going to get infinite copies anyway. So I like 2 as a bit of a sweet spot. 1 if you just fear no human and you're really confident at your resource management, but 2 is a safe bet. 1 Scam, just to search out your dark spirits or even a tour guide in niche circumstances. And then we play 2 Archfiend Eccentric. So you could run one of these, but the only annoying thing about Eccentric is that it is a pendulum monster. So when it dies, it does go up face up in the extra deck. So you can't recycle it as well as any of your other monsters. So we just run it at 2 and it just provides fantastic utility no matter what anyway. Right, moving on to the spells and traps. So we have 9 spells and 11 trap cards. So kicking things off, we have 3 Ties of the Brethren. So this card means you pay 2,000 life points, target one of your monsters, summon 2 monsters from the deck with the same type, attribute, and level. So basically the whole point here is you can summon something like Tour Guide, and if they Ash Blossom you and you've got this in hand, that's an extra way to extend, and that's actually what you want to do anyway. You want to use Ties to bring something like Lilith out onto your side of the field to search for your key trap cards. It also has the benefit of being a life point costing card, right? So if you have Masterking Archfiend on your side of the field, pay 2,000 life points, you can send an Archfiend Emperor straight to your graveyard. 1 Foolish Burial, just because it's exactly what the deck needs. We need monsters in the graveyard for their effects to happen. 3 Void Apocalypse, so this card is really good for enabling the Archfiend strategy. Discard 1 card, send a fiend from your deck to the graveyard. Has some Infernoid stuff in there as well, but no one really cares. And the whole point, of course, is to send monsters like Heiress into the graveyard, is to send your Dark Spirits, and to send level 8 Fiends to recycle those Dark Spirits. We play 1 Archfiend's Staff of Despair. So this card is really good for the Master King resource loop. Like I say, I already covered a video on that, but the whole idea is you pay 1,000 life points to send stuff like Archfiend Heiress into the graveyard. 1 copy of Pandemonium. So this allows you to search out any Archfiend card, basically, and it's pretty much there to search out your Archfiend Eccentrics. Right, and now we have the trap cards. So we have 3 Archfiend Glitch, an amazing card to have in an Archfiend deck. If you have a Fiend monster, you can destroy a card on the field and then send a Fiend from your deck to the graveyard. So basically everything you could possibly want in an Archfiend card. 3 Give and Take, so you special summon a monster from your graveyard in defense position onto your opponent's side of the field, and then you modulate the level of one of your monsters in the process. So the whole point here is to special summon Archfiend Emperor onto their side of the field, and now you've locked them into summoning only Fiend type monsters. Archfiend's Roar, just play the 1 copy for now, and it allows you to pay 500 life points, summon an Archfiend monster from your graveyard, and then it blows up at the end of the turn. And then we have 3 Unending Nightmares. So this card allows you to destroy face-up spell and trap cards on the field at the cost of 1,000 life points, again facilitating the Master King strategy. And then finally we have the 1 Call of the Archfiend, which allows you to special summon additional Archfiends from your graveyard turn after turn. So that's a 43 card deck. So now let's move into the extra deck. We have a bunch of Exceeds and only a couple of Link monsters. So starting with the Link monsters, we of course have Master King Archfiend. So this is the MVP of the deck, even though no one thought we would be saying that sort of thing in 2022, particularly for Archfiend builds. So basically what it does, right, it has a 500 maintenance cost every standby phase, so that's, who cares. If you have Pandemonium, you don't pay anything, and if you pay any amount of life points, you send a Fiend monster from your deck to the graveyard with attack or defense equal to the life points that you paid. And if Fiend monsters are sent to the graveyard, you can roll a dice, and that card will either go back into the deck, in your hand, or onto the field. Pretty much all you want to do is put cards back into your deck so that you can recycle them. Any other effect is just a bonus. Then we have a Cherubini. Do we need a Cherubini? Not really. And then just to round off the Link monsters, we have Nightmare Unicorn, just for spinning stuff into the deck. And then we also have Underworld Goddess of a Closed World as a last resort kaiju to just get over anything that's problematic. And the rest of the deck is really utility, right? So for all of these are Exceeds monsters. So we play the Draglubion package. So we have Hope Harbinger, we have Numeron Dragon, and we have Draglubion. And that allows you to push for a 9,000 attack minimum OCK. We play the Cypher package. So you summon Cypher Dragon, you take monsters, go into a Full Armor Photon Dragon, destroy a card on the field, go into Cypher Blade Dragon, destroy another card on the field, and if that dies, you float again into Cypher Dragon. We played Dante and Beatrice because we run 2 Burning Abyss monsters, so in the event that you draw them, you can always go into Dante, and then you can send another one and go into Beatrice, and then that allows you to send monsters from your deck to the graveyard. And then we play a small Zeus package, so we play Stone King Darius as the rank 3. He actually has a pretty good effect, right? It can't be destroyed by battle, by detaching the material, and then you also destroy the opponent's monster that it battles with. That's not bad. The whole idea, of course, is to go into Stone King Darius, overlay into Divisor King Deus Machinax, which is a really good card just on its own anyway. And then, of course, you attack, and then you just overlay into Zeus, and then you just board wipe. So that's the entire deck. Now, I just want to go through a few combos that you can do. So in this particular hand, so we don't even need to summon Master King in this particular point in time. We're just going to use Ties of the Brethren to summon Lilith and any other monster that you like, just another Dark Spirit. And then we may as well use Lilith's effect to get rid of a Dark Spirit to set 3 Archfiend glitches onto our side of the field. And then we can just set everything and pass, and then on their turn, we can activate an Archfiend glitch to destroy our Dark Spirit Banishment, for example, and then we're going to send a monster from the deck to the graveyard. In this particular case, let's just send Archfiend Emperor. This is going to recycle both of our Dark Spirits, which is great, and we're going to chain all of that with Give and Take to summon the Archfiend Emperor from the graveyard. Because we've targeted Lilith, we're also going to tribute Lilith and set an additional trap onto our side of the field. Doesn't really matter which one. Boom, so now we've got Archfiend Emperor on their side of the field. They're locked completely into Fiends, and if they do manage to get over it, we have Call of the Archfiend to summon it back onto our side of the field, and we have both of our Dark Spirits to summon it again. With this particular hand, so what we're going to do is activate Tour Guide from the Underworld's effect, and this is going to summon a Fiendish Rhino Warrior onto our side of the field. From here, we're going to overlay, we're going to link those off into Masterking Archfiend. Fiendish Rhino Warrior's effect will activate, and we're going to go ahead and send an Archfiend Heiress into the graveyard. Chainlink 1 Archfiend Heiress, Chainlink 2 Master King, so that it can't be Ash Blossomed. Gets put straight back into the deck, and now we can search for whatever we want. In this particular case, let's go for Archfiend Glitch, just for that extra disruption. Then we're also going to activate Archfiend General's effect, search out Pandemonium, and we may as well at this point activate Master King's effect. Let's see what happens. Okay, so it goes straight back into the deck. Let's activate Pandemonium. Then we're going to use Void Apocalypse to discard our Imprisoned Queen, and this is going to send a Archfiend of Gilfer into the graveyard. From here, Archfiend Gilfer's effect is going to attach to Master King, and the attack decrease doesn't necessarily matter. We're just going to set everything and pass. And then on their turn, let's go ahead and activate Unending Nightmare. Activate its effect, pay 1,000 life points, destroy our Archfiend of Gilfer. And now from here, we've got a little bit of a Gilfer loop going on. So we activate Gilfer to re-equip itself. We're going to activate Pandemonium, and we're also going to activate the effect of Master King, where we send a Fiend from the deck to the graveyard. We're not going to roll the dice because we don't want Archfiend of Gilfer to be put into our deck. So let's just see these resolve. So we have a Archfiend Heiress that we're going to send into the graveyard. Pandemonium is going to search out an Archfiend Cavalry. And then Gilfer's going to equip itself, and now we are going to use Heiress, and of course now we can roll the dice, see if our card is going to be recycled. So yes, it goes straight back into the deck, and now we can search out anything else that we like. In this case, I'm going to search for Labyrinth Archfiend. Now it's still the draw phase, ladies and gentlemen, so we may as well activate an Unending Nightmare again, destroy our Archfiend of Gilfer, and because we paid 1,000, this is exactly the same combo once again, right? So we're going to re-equip to Master King. We are going to send a Fiend from the deck to the graveyard. We're going to activate Pandemonium. If we have a look at our graveyard, we've got a selection of cards that we might want to recycle. So Pandemonium is going to search out an Archfiend Eccentric, and then Master King Archfiend is going to go ahead and send a monster from the deck to the graveyard. Note that I have a Farfa, right? So with Archfiend of Gilfer, that is something that we can always pop. So depending on what they summon, we can always use Farfa to banish something. But we're going to send Tour Bus from the Underworld instead. Gilfer is going to re-equip itself, and now we're just going to return a monster into the deck. I'm just going to return Fiendish Rhino Warrior, and now we'll just roll the dice and see if Tour Bus of the Underworld gets put back into the deck. Yes, it does, and we recycle everything. This is basically just to show you a nice resource loop, yeah? So if we wanted to, I don't recommend it anymore, but we can keep going, right? So we can destroy Archfiend of Gilfer. Gilfer's effect re-equips itself. Masterking Archfiend sends a fiend from the deck to the graveyard, and of course Pandemonium activates. So Pandemonium of course can search out anything we like, so we can search another eccentric if we want to. Masterking Archfiend now can send the Tour Bus from the underworld. Archfiend of Gilfer is going to reset itself. We can just put Tour Bus back into the deck. And this is just a way to keep generating advantage through Pandemonium. So let's just move past the draw phase and the standby phase. And let's see, right? They're going to summon a tour guide from the underworld. It's going to activate its effect. We are going to anticipate that by activating an Archfiend glitch. And we're going to destroy their tour guide from the underworld. And that allows us to send a fiend monster from our deck to the graveyard. And because we recycled our Fiendish Rhino Warrior, we're going to send that. And they are going to summon a monster on their side of the field. Now, what we're going to do is activate Fiendish Rhino Warrior and then use Masterking Archfiend's effect to put it back into the deck. And of course, we have Labyrinth Archfiend that we searched out earlier. So we're going to activate Labyrinth Archfiend and summon it straight onto our side of the field. So, oh, and now just as a nice little added bonus there, Fiendish Rhino Warrior comes onto our side of the field and protects all of our fiends from harm. And now what we're going to do, because we used Fiendish Rhino Warrior, we're going to send an Archfiend Commander into the graveyard. And we're not going to use Masterking Archfiend's effect. Instead, we're going to use our Unending Nightmare to destroy Archfiend of Gilfer. And this is going to allow us to re-equip this. So let's just equip it to their monster. Why not? Then, because we paid 1,000 life points, we're going to send a fiend from the deck to the graveyard. And we have Pandemonium, which allows us to search for an Archfiend monster. So Pandemonium is going to add an Archfiend General. Then Masterking Archfiend is going to send a Farfa from our deck to the graveyard. And now we can activate Farfa's effect to banish the monster that they had. And then we can use Masterking Archfiend to recycle itself. So at this point in time, what's good to consider is that Archfiend of Gilfer needs to basically always revive itself. And by using a nice little resource loop, we now have Archfiend Commander in the graveyard that we can use Tour Bus on to spin back into the deck and then search out with Archfiend Empress, bringing it into our hand on our turn. So as you can see, Farfa goes away, and now Archfiend of Gilfer, of course, can re-equip itself. Let's just put it on the Rhino Warrior, and let's just activate Pandemonium's effect and search out yet another card. But let's put an Archfiend Empress into our hand. But let's just say it goes back to our turn. So the Farfa will plock that monster right back onto their side of the field. And now let's just use our Unending Nightmare to destroy our Archfiend of Gilfer. This will use its effect to re-equip itself. We'll use Masterking Archfiend to send a fiend from the deck to the graveyard, and we'll use Pandemonium's effect for good measure. So now we can send Tour Bus from the deck to the grave. Archfiend of Gilfer summons itself, and then we're going to return Archfiend Commander into the deck, and then use our little resource loop here to see, okay, so now we can put Tour Bus onto our side of the field. Commander's now back into the deck, and we are not going to pay any maintenance costs because of Pandemonium. And because Imprisoned Queen Archfiend is in the graveyard, we get a nice little attack boost. That's nice, isn't it? And now because I used Pandemonium a bit too frequently, we've got two Archfiend Heiresses in our hands. We'll just use Void Apocalypse to dump one into the graveyard, and then we'll just send something else. In normal circumstances, you would probably send a high-level fiend, but because Edo Pro is currently bugged, it comes up with two roll dies, and I don't know which one is Archfiend Empress, so I'm going to activate both of them just to make sure that this works. So, of course, all these activate, and they get shoved into the deck, and now I'm just going to use Unending Nightmare's effect to destroy Archfiend of Gilfer, which will then start our loop all over again, and allow us to send a fiend from the deck to the graveyard, but then we just won't use Pandemonium. So this allows us to send Archfiend Empress. We can equip, and now we can use Heiress's effect and Masterking Archfiend's effect. So Masterking Archfiend has gone ahead and summoned it straight onto our side of the field, and now the whole point is to search out an Archfiend Commander. So now we have our Archfiend Cavalry and Commander, and through this resource loop we can summon these cards every single turn. And now we have plenty of fodder to do pretty much whatever we like. So we could go into Stone King like that, and now we have a Zeus cards all set up. We can summon Archfiend Cavalry, and then use Archfiend Commander to destroy that cavalry. And if I didn't have Fiendish Rhino Warrior on our side of the field, we could have then revived an Archfiend monster. Right now, to really make the deck go off, it is somewhat heavily reliant on Unending Nightmare, but there's bound to be other cards that you can use, that you can tech in. You can even use standard Spell and Trap Disruption, so you can even run Archfiend Eccentric, activate it, and then just use its effect to destroy your Archfiend of Gilfer and then recycle it and then use Pandemonium. The only problem there is that you don't get the 1000 life point cost, but it's not the end of the world. So additional cards that you might want to tech into a Masterking Control build is the Berserk Dragon engine, where you have an Axe of Despair, a Deal with Dark Ruler, and of course Berserk Dragon. So the whole point is to use Unending Nightmare to destroy your Axe of Despair, and that allows you to send an Archfiend Heiress to search a Deal with Dark Ruler, and then you use Axe of Despair's effect to tribute your level 8 Fiend to then make Deal with Dark Ruler live so that you can go into Berserk Dragon. An additional tech which might be exceedingly powerful in today's metagame, particularly against the Ishizu tier element type strategy, is a continuous trap card called Soul Demolition. This is a card where you pay 500 life points, then each player targets a monster in their opponent's graveyard and banishes it, so long as you control a fiend type monster. This card is not once per turn, and it is not once per chain. So the 500 life point cost, if you shove a 500 target into your deck, Master King can dump it straight into the graveyard, meaning you always have a target, and then all you do is you activate 500 life points continuously, because if that's the only fiend in your graveyard, they have to target that one, and then you just target every single monster in their graveyard and banish it, and then they only banish one of yours. It's absolutely insane. Additional techs, since this is quite a slow, grindy type strategy, then you could run a small Dogmatica package, so Dogmatica Punishment in addition to Nadir Serpent and Ecclesia. And what this enables you to do is activate Nadir Serpent, send, say, a Garura from your deck to the graveyard, add Ecclesia, and then this allows you to draw a card off of Garura, summon Ecclesia, search Dogmatica Punishment, and you've plussed and job done. You might want to do this after you've summoned Masterking Archfiend because it locks you out of the extra deck. In the future, there is the lovely Lady of the Labyrinth that's going to come out, and that allows you to set trap cards directly from your deck. So a more labyrinth focused Master King build could be considered. And speaking of which, there's a really good trap card called Boo Boo Game. And if your opponent has Harpy's Feather Duster and that card's on your side of the field, it will get destroyed, and then you can set 2 normal traps from your graveyard onto the field and you can activate them that turn. So it allows you to protect yourself against those types of plays. In addition to that, you can also run Lord of the Heavenly Prison. If you're really insistent on getting Tour Guide of the Underworld out and you want to have more pure Archfiend cards in your deck, then you can run Vile Pawn Archfiend and Shadow Knight Archfiend and 3 copies of Small World. So this enables you to banish one of those and you basically search out Tour Guide off of that because they have differing levels and attributes. And that's everything. So this is an introduction to a new way to play Archfiends called Master King Control. It's very much, as I say, in the prototype phase. I encourage you to have a go with this deck, see if it fits your playstyle. If you can think of any text that you would like to include in the deck, then feel free to let me know in the comments section. I'd love to see your thoughts and how we can basically elevate this deck into a more competent version of itself. So if you liked this video, my name's Adam. If you didn't, my name's Steve. And if you would like to see more Archfiend related duels, reviews, combos, and discussions, then feel free to have a browse. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you around.